So our first important word of the day is permutation. The arrangement of a set of objects in order is called a permutation. So they have an example. They're saying we have the word Kelowna. It has 7 letters. You want to scramble it up for your friend and say, hey, can you figure out what this word is? And you don't want it to be biased, so you write down all the different arrangements on little pieces of paper and mix them up and put them in a hat. And they just pick one of them and see if they can rearrange it. So how many different pieces of paper did you put into that hat? Well, there are 7 ways to choose the first letter. In fact, we could do this with spaces because you have 7 decisions to make. How many choices do you have for your first letter? You could pick any of the 7. Say you pick the O. Now the O is used up. When you go to your next decision, what letter is going to be next? How many choices do you have left? 6. And you could pick any of the 6. So let's say you chose the N. But there was 6 choices, but you only are still picking 1 letter. Does that make sense? And then you would have 5 choices, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, which is the same as 7 factorial, which we just did on our calculator, is equal to 5,040. So you would have had to write 5,040 different arrangements of Kelowna on a piece of paper so that it was unbiased, and put it in a hat and shake it up, and they pull out Kelowna. And they figure it out right away. That would be very lucky. But that would be one of them, right? One of those 5,040 is Kelowna spelt the correct way. So what we have to help us write this quicker is something called factorial notation. And factorial notation just means start with that number, go down by 1 each time, and multiply. So 2 would be 2 times 1, 3 times 2 times 1, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and we have a formula. N factorial, where n is any number. You just keep multiplying by 1 less until you get to 1. And in order for some formulas to work, we define 0 factorial as equal to 1. For some formulas to work, we're going to need this, and we'll see it later on. It doesn't follow the pattern. It doesn't make sense according to the pattern. It's just a definition. 0 factorial is 1. All right, here is our first example. A puzzle designer decides to scramble the letters of the word education. So much fun to create a jumble puzzle. How many 9-letter permutations of education could you make? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You would have how many choices for your first letter? 9, then 8. So we could do this with spaces. Or we could notice that we could just do 9 factorial because we're multiplying all the way down. And that's a shorter way to write it than writing it all out. Do you know what's neat about the word education? It has all 5 vowels, all only once. Ooh. Can you think of a 7-letter word with all 5 vowels only once? That would mean only 2 consonants and 5 vowels. I'll give you a hint in a bit. Okay, questions for, yeah, see if Siri knows. I'll give you a couple of these word puzzles. Give you a headache first thing in the morning trying to think of them.